In reality, if we're talking about the actual fastest, best, whatever way that you want to make this character, probably the actual answer is going to be going and finding a racer's bow slash lightning arrow POB, getting a bunch of like overpowered leveling gear for it, and just zooming through the campaign, right? That's probably the most reliable, fastest way. Get up to like level 93, buy all the gear for the Kinetic Blast, Kinetic Bolt build, and just swap over to it. However, that's probably not why you clicked on this video. You probably want to level with Kinetic Bolt, right? Kinetic Bolt of Fragmentation. And you can, and that's how I originally leveled this character, is with Kinetic Bolt of Fragmentation. It went extremely well, and I've gotten enough people who have asked me, you know, hey, I want some leveling information about this. How do I level the character? What do I do with it? And I put some like brief notes in the original POB, but I asked you guys yesterday, hey, do you want some leveling content for this? And it seemed like a decent amount of you did say yes. So we'll see how this video goes, and if it seems like you guys actually like it, then I'll start putting out leveling content even for like my end game guides and give you, you know, like a detailed way of leveling up the character. Now, the big thing about Kinetic Bolt of Fragmentation, if you're not aware of it yet, is that this ability can shotgun. All of these projectiles that come out at one time can all hit the target in front of you. And if you've seen in my other video, if you do have sniper's mark on them and returning projectiles, they all hit, split, and then return, causing it to be an absolutely super effective ability. But the main thing that we're going to be abusing on this ability is the fact that it has increases and reductions of spell damage also apply to attack damage from the skill at 250% of their value. So with that in mind, with the fact that it is shotgunning a whole bunch of times and it scales extremely well off of spell damage, obviously it would make sense to scale spell damage in any way that you can and scale a bunch of added damage in any way that you can, right? So the way that I originally leveled this was pretty simple. I grabbed a bunch of items that increase the amount of damage that you do with attacks, meaning things like Replica Tessalio's Sign, Prism Weave. Very early on I used Black Hearts because at level 0 essentially having a bunch of regen and a bunch of chaos damage to attacks honestly isn't bad. Obviously you do something like Tabula, Gold Rim, 7 League Step. These are pretty classic leveling items and you want to have enough resistances to be able to, you know, survive. And then of course something like Dodri's Tenure. This gives you 100% spell damage and you completely skip the downside of these gloves because you're not going to be casting anything. And it has some intelligence, which is a bonus. Now, as for an amulet, you can use Carnage Heart. I think I have Astramentus in the POB. Either of these should work perfectly fine. Carnage Heart will have a little bit more resistances on it, but we do need to talk about the wand and the shield because those are something that you'll probably just swap around consistently throughout your leveling experience. And the main way that you're going to be doing this is you're going to be buying new bases or finding new bases on the ground. Now, when you get to town for the first time on this build, what you're going to do is you're going to go in here and you're just going to find a carved one. Doesn't really matter what eye level it is. It doesn't really matter anything. Just get to Act 1 town, grab a carved one, and what you're going to do, you can quality it if you want to. I guess I will just because. But you're going to blue roll this, and you're just going to start alteration rolling this. And the thing that you're looking for is if you find some like big added damage, that's fine, but you're looking for spell damage or you're looking for something like added damage to attacks or attack speed or something. And then what you're going to do is you're going to augment this. That didn't end up being very good, but we'll regal it. And then from here, right, you can either keep re-rolling this if you want something a little bit better, like you want like 2 good mods, or you're going to go back to your hideout. You go to the bench here, you'll check to see what level it requires for the lowest attack speed mod, right? So if we're looking at attack speed, lowest attack speed mod is 24. Whereas if we look at spell damage, the lowest spell damage mod is 16. So realistically, you're just gonna take whatever you can get with this one, right? So that ended up not being exactly what we wanted, so let's try again. We have essentially infinite amounts of this currency. Spell damage, crit, it's a good spell damage roll. It's got some crit, which isn't super useful to us. Mana, sure, whatever it is. Just something like this will be fine. And then as you do level up a little bit, take this wand, craft like attack speed on it, or if you end up getting a good attack speed roll, then you can craft, you know, spell damage on it, whatever you'd like to. And as you move through the campaign, look for carved wands, engraved wands, as well as imbued wands. These are the wands with the fastest base attack speed, which is all that's going to matter while you're leveling up. You don't care about crit chance, although these do have the highest crit chance as well. You don't care about the implicit, you don't care about anything like that. You're just worried about spell damage, attack speed, and any extra damage that you can get to attacks. Now you can do the same exact thing with a shield. However, you do need to make sure that you're doing a pure energy shield. Now, a lot of the time you're going to go to, like, what's his name over here? Tarclay. You're going to purchase items from him. He's probably going to give you a bunch of, like, minion shields. Yeah, so we'll see Bone Spirit Shield, but yeah, so all minions shields. Now, minion shields aren't super useful, but any shield that is only energy shield will be able to roll spell damage on it. So you're just going to want to roll this, and you're just going to keep hitting it. I mean, you could stick with plus the level of something, but you could go for life and resistances. That would be good, but here you go. You've got spell damage, right? Spell damage, lightning resist, you'd regal it. Minions have elemental resist, doesn't do anything for us, but this is the kind of shield that you would get. You'd craft some good mod on it, like resistances or life. And then these would be your weapon and your shield. You would upgrade these over the course of leveling all the way through the campaign. And then when you do make it to like maps, you could swap into something like Piscators, or you could just craft a very basic wand. These items will absolutely carry you all the way through the game. You should have pretty much max resistances the entire time. You should be doing tons of damage. You shouldn't really die super often. If you have maximum resistances, take Grace, run Precision, and you will be more than fine. But we do need to talk a little bit about the Ascendancy here, and we're talking about the Wildwood Ascendancy. Now, when we are looking at Wildwood Ascendancy for this build, you will be a Warden of the Magi eventually. However, there is one particular note on the Warden of the Magi that's very powerful, and that's going to be Oath of the Magi. This is only good early on. However, 2 lines of this are very important. 50% to all Elirez if you have an equipped helmet with no socketed gems, and 30% increased movement speed if you have equipped boots with no socketed gems. These 2 modifiers will absolutely catapult you through the campaign, no problem whatsoever, and you only need to find this guy once to be able to do it. Now, if you are semi-patient and you prefer an easier experience through, you can go to Act 3 and choose any zone where you start, the waypoint is at the start of the zone, and see if there is an entrance to the Wildwood there. Now, as far as I'm aware, when you're on a high-leveled character, it doesn't show you the Wildwood in these lower-level zones. So you're not going to find it here, and I can't show it to you on any of these characters. However, there is one place that I can show it to you, and that's going to be Act 10 in the Desecrated Chambers. And in this Desecrated Chambers, there will be an entrance to the Wildwood extremely close to the waypoint. You'll find it right here. So you can just go into this zone. You can come into the Wildwood and, search for the things that you're looking for. As you leave the Wildwood, go to the waypoint, control click it, and just refresh the zone and go in over and over and over and over again. Now, there's one peculiarity about the Wildwood in general when it comes to finding these quest enemies. What I have noticed is that if you enter this zone and say you're looking for like the beast that's in the cage, right? Or you're looking for like the 3 trees that are sucking life from the Wildwood. In general, if you find one of those, the others are in the same exact zone, but it seems like they kind of spread them out in like different directions throughout the Wildwood. So for example, if you run up to the right and we try to find like some kind of event here, if you do find an event in some specific direction, most likely there's not going to be anything else in that direction. It's like we found this forest cache here, right? Now there could be things in these other directions up here, but we did find an event. So most likely it's going to be a little bit safer or a little bit more likely that something will show up in a different direction. So we'll head all the way back to where we started, which is going to be about here, and we'll walk in a different direction. On average, we'll find another event much more quickly. So we found the second event, nothing really there, so we're going to try to walk in a third direction now and see if we can find something. And in general, you will always want to follow these little wisp trails if you can, because they will lead you in the right direction most of the time. So if you find a wisp trail, try to follow it. But this is going to take a little bit of time. It's not going to be consistent. I think this is one of the worst attributes of the Wildwood in general, is that they made this so RNG and it's so difficult to find the quests on new characters. But using the Desecrated Chambers is probably the best way to go about it. But as I said, you'll go here, you'll control click, and you will just open up a new version of the same exact zone. You'll jump here into the Wildwood again and repeat as many times as you need to be able to find whoever it is that you're looking for, which most of the time is going to be the Warden of the Magi or his little quest things that you have to do. Now, as always, I have included a leveling POB in here. This is relatively handholdy, but it's not going to be as handholdy as one of my League Start guides, because if you're playing this character, you should have an idea of how the game and the campaign and such works. You should have an idea of how to play the game. If you don't know how to do those things, you should not be playing this character. This is a character for like a second character of the league, someone who's a little bit experienced and has some currency. However, I have included all the things that you should need. There are going to be leveling trees in here going from campaign of 1 all the way through 10, a small respec, and then white, yellow, and red maps. So the idea here is that early on, your main goals are just going to be getting to very powerful keystones that influence the damage of your build. So in Act 1, we'll come out through attack speed just because this is going to scale us the best when it comes to like our damage that we're doing. We'll grab these flask nodes and these mana nodes just to give ourselves a little bit of strength and intelligence early. And as we move into Act 2, we are going to be heading for precise technique. This is very powerful. This alongside precision and just getting accuracy nodes on the tree whenever you need them is insanely strong. 40% more damage is a huge amount of damage. On top of that, we are going to be grabbing Graceful Assault. This gives us Onslaught on kill and increases the effect of Onslaught. This will make your movement through the campaign significantly faster, significantly stronger. On top of that, we will be taking Point Blank. Point Blank is a little contentious here. I do believe that this is best because the vast majority of enemies that are going to be the most difficult are going to be like rares and unique mobs, which you will be right up in their face, and you're not really going to have returning projectiles super early. So I think Point Blank is a huge amount of damage, very, very powerful. And then after you're done with Point Blank, you're going to be moving towards some aura nodes. You're going to grab these excess sustenance nodes, these life gain on hit nodes. This should make it so that you can use either like life tap on all your abilities early, or you can basically just never die as long as you're hitting enough times. Then we'll move through more damage. We'll come over here to the right. We're going to be grabbing this Pierce, as this is just going to make our build clear substantially better, and it's going to make returning projectiles a lot better. Pierce is just super strong. Going to be moving down here, grabbing a little bit of accuracy, and then we're going to start moving up this way. We're going to grab this leech as well as this instant leech. This is the point where you can drop any life taps. You can drop pretty much anything having to do with healing if you want to. I'd probably still keep these just so you can be mostly immortal except to one-shots. And then we're going to fill in a couple points here, get some life nodes. You should have plenty of accuracy at this point with the accuracy mastery. And then we're going to be moving up. We're going to be grabbing some life nodes and moving towards these wand nodes, which are very powerful. As we get to Act 10 and we finish Act 10, there's going to be a little bit of a respec. These initial points are really bad for the build and they don't really make a lot of sense with this pathing. So we are going to do a little bit of a respec here. And I can show you here if we do compared to the respec here, you'll notice there's a decent amount of points swapping out. We're taking out all of these initial points, taking out this point, these points, and the way that you're going to do this is you're going to take all those skill point quests that you get towards the end, or if you go back and do them later, fill in all of these green points here, all these ones here, all these ones here, and then you're going to remove these points afterwards, after you've already filled in the extra points, and move them up towards this way, up to these wand slinger nodes. So that's the idea. You'll move into your respec. This will make your character a lot closer to the in-game POB, and then through white maps, starting to grab some of these flask nodes so that your clear is a little bit better. Yellow maps, you're going to start taking some of these suppression nodes here, and then in red maps, you'll finish out the suppression, grab a couple extra bonus nodes. And around this time, you should really be thinking about moving to the endgame POB. You can probably, if you are leveling as Kinetic Bolt of Fragmentation, move over to the endgame POB around like 85 is around the time that you could probably do it. This should get you like step by step going through. We can talk about the Ascendancy real quick. So early on, we're probably going to get our first Ascendancy in Act 3. I suggest gathering wins because when you are leveling, especially on a like leveling geared character, movement speed is everything. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. That's why I said get the Wildwood Ascendancy early so that you can have nothing in your boots, nothing in your helmet, get a bunch of movement speed. Tailwind is going to give you action speed, which is movement speed, cast speed, and attack speed. This is going to just be the best first node by far. Every time you use an ability, you're going to move faster, you're going to attack faster. It's just very powerful. As we move up, I think into Act 8, we're going to be grabbing Far Shot. Far Shot and Point Blank do work well together. It is probably about the best of both worlds. As I said in my previous video, I'm not 100% certain on this, but Far Shot is still an upgrade. It is the second one that you should take. When we move into the end game, we are going to be taking Endless Munitions. Additional projectiles scale extremely well with this build, and we're not really too super worried about single target damage yet. We're just trying to get good clear. The last node that we will get once we head into yellow maps is going to be this focal point. This makes it so that your marks will cause you to have that big explosion of projectiles that go out. And that's going to be pretty much it for the trees. Now, I did talk a little bit about the items previously. All of them are in here, as well as some additional notes on things I said in this video as well. Notably, the amulet and the rings do have quality on them. These aren't necessary, but you probably can use these for a lot of characters, and the qualities that I use on these aren't that expensive. It's not like we're doing like resist qualities or life mana qualities or anything like that. So these get quite a bit stronger with quality on them. I do have some flasks in here as well. If you use the flasks that you get as you level and you get from like quests and drops on the grounds and things like that, they'll be significantly easier to roll the mods for your actual leveling character, because you won't be able to roll like level 80 plus mods or 50 plus mods or 20 plus mods or anything like that. You'll only be able to roll the mods that are actually like good for your character. Way easier to get the ones you're looking for. In general, I would say a Quicksilver pretty much always. Quartz Flask is really good for moving through enemies. Just phasing in general is just very powerful. If you do want to and you don't want to use a Quartz Flask, you can take this node, this phasing node right here. It is pretty good. 10% chance to gain on kill is not as good as just having the Quartz Flask, and this should be up most of the time, but you could do both if you wanted to as well. And then of course a Bismuth Flask if you're having difficulty with resistances, or for some reason you don't want to use Gold Rim and you want to use like, I think the helmet that's the good damage helmet is like Acinus or something. The one that gives you like attack speed and spell damage. That one's pretty solid, but Gold Rim in general, you're already going to be doing tons of damage. I just personally think that having a little bit more resist is better. And then of course, Life Flask and Mana Flask. Now talking about the skills a little bit, I do want you to note that I have put a bunch of skills in here. One, you will always want to level these as much as you possibly can. The quality on Kinetic Blast and Kinetic Bolt of Fragmentation are both very important. You don't have to use Kinetic Blast. If you are insanely geared early on, Kinetic Blast is still going to be really strong. However, early on, you are not going to have the mastery that makes it so that increases and reductions of spell damage also apply to attacks while wielding a wand. The thing about Kinetic Blast in general is that this will still be good if you are doing an oppressive amount of damage, but in general, Kinetic Bolt of Fragmentation is going to be your actual like damage. So you could completely drop this. You don't have to use it for the campaign at all. However, if you're doing a lot of damage and you have a lot of gear, it's still going to be really good. Returning projectiles, greater multiple projectiles, elemental damage with attacks, and faster attacks. These are going to be the links that I think you should eventually move towards. Before that, you can use life tap, you can use added damage of pretty much any kind, you can use life gain on hit. Anything that makes your character do more damage early on or keeps you alive through like life gain and things are all perfectly fine early. But eventually you should be moving towards these links here as you hit like level 40 or so in the game. For movement, Shield Charge, Faster Attacks, Momentum is pretty classic. Frost Blink alongside it. This is going to make it so that you can move through zones very quickly, cover gaps really easily. You can use things like Flame Dash if you want something that's a little bit longer distance, but it's not going to be instant. Sniper's Mark you get very early. You get it at level 4. I suggest that you use it on difficult enemies right away. It's very powerful, lots of extra damage that you'll be doing, and it'll help you with clearing like enemies around mobs as well. Mark on hit, as soon as you can get it, go for it. When it comes to auras, you use precision no matter what. You can use some heralds early on if you would like to, but they're definitely not needed. And then you can choose between Purity of Elements and Grace. If you're using things like Gold Rim and things like Prism Weave, I do heavily suggest that you go ahead and use Grace. This is just going to be way more powerful because you're going to want to have to deal with attacks and physical damage. Whereas Purity of Elements will be very good if you are just using all damage gear and just like, you know, like forehead run through the zone. And then most notably, make sure that you have nothing socketed in your boots and nothing socketed in your helm, and your character should be well above the resistances that you need. You can see that with Gold Rim, nothing socketed in my helmet, as well as I think the only other resists we really have are like the Implicit from Replica Tesalios, Prism Weave. I don't have the Flask activated. And then I think a little bit crafted on the shield. We're at essentially maximum resistances on Act 10 -60 resist, so you should be pretty much fine. And that's going to be it for the video. If you're interested in seeing me play these builds through the entirety of the campaign and maybe even some early maps with full commentary talking about how things work, make sure to let me know down in the comments. I know most of you said that this was the video that you wanted and you didn't really care about like a full speed run through the campaign with commentary or things like that, but if enough people say, hey, I kind of want to watch that video, then maybe I'll think about it. But remember, boys, if you enjoy this content, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos, and stay safe out there in Raid class, and I'll see you guys in the next video.